Good morning. It is a beautiful morning here at Stone Mountain Park. A little cold. It's like in the low 40s, but that won't deter us from going to Atlanta. We're going to Atlanta today. So let's hit the road.
I'm riding in my RV, wherever I want to be, 'cause I'm free in my RV, yeah.
So yeah, we're staying at Stone Mountain Park Campground, which is very nice actually. We've been here before, and God willing, we'll be back here again. It is only about 40 minutes away from the heart of Atlanta. And that's the plan for today. I mean, we drive through this great American city at least twice a year, sometimes more. And we've been here a handful of times. But we haven't really visited places like the Capitol Building, or the Martin Luther King National Historical Park, or what we like to do in certain cities, just walk around and get lost. Spoiler alert! While we're going to visit, or at least pass by some of the iconic spots, this is by no means an in-depth, all-encompassing visit. That being said, join us as we explore Atlanta. We might even discover new things along the way. Here on the right, Centennial Olympic Park, Georgia's legacy of the 1996 Summer Olympic Games. And I think our biggest challenge here is going to be finding reasonably priced parking. And the aquarium garage could work, but is 6'8" clearance, and Starship here is 6'7". I'm still afraid I might scrape the rooftop GoPro or something else. In my mind, 1 inch is too close for comfort. Not a whole lot of traffic in this area on a Friday, or pedestrians for that matter, which makes it feel somewhat uninviting. Atlanta, besides being Georgia's largest city, is also its capital, so how about we visit the state capitol building first? First impression, there's a lot of people living on the street, which is unfortunate. I was really hoping to find parallel parking on the street, but eventually we decided to go inside a parking garage. We're just a couple of blocks away.
The government walk. You are here. State Capitol.
After going through the X-ray machine and the metal detector, here we are. We are now on the second floor, and while it is not as ornate as other Capitol buildings we've seen, it is still beautiful in a classic sense and grand with this 3-story atrium and lots of paintings and other works of art. Here we have the Secretary of State's office, and on the other side, the office of the governor. Here's a portrait of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was born here in Atlanta in 1929. Here's a bust of James Edward Oglethorpe, founder of the colony of Georgia. This chamber would be the House of Representatives.
But they were doing some kind of orientation at the Senate chamber, so I decided not to film in there. But it's very similar to the House of Representatives, just smaller, as it should be. And here we are at the 4th floor, which is the museum.
The museum has lots of information about the natural and cultural history of Georgia, but the presentation feels perhaps a little dated. I mean, it's been in existence since 1889. There's some kind of high production going on down there. Here's another view of the House of Representatives from up above. So that's how it is inside. And this is the Senate chamber. Well, it is kind of hard to see. Here's a statue of a Mississippian chief.
Alright, that was the Georgia State Capitol, so let's continue.
The statue of Miss Freedom stands atop the dome, gilded with gold leaf from Dahlonega. And here we have the statue of the 39th President of the United States. From Plains, Georgia, President Jimmy Carter. We visited his boyhood home last year. And this would be Richard Russell, at one point Georgia's youngest governor and lifelong politician. Here's one more look at the gilded cupola and Miss Freedom.
Alright, onward we go.
Here's the view from one of the parking lot's upper levels. Parking ended up being $10, which is kind of steep for the time we spent here, but not unheard of in a major city downtown. Okay, let's go somewhere else. Someone recommended a local chain serving Cuban sandwiches called Cubanos ATL. And it is a little bit of a drive, but we want to take a break from downtown anyway. It is kind of eerily deserted. It is certainly not a city where you feel compelled to walk around, explore, get lost in the concrete jungle in its urban maze. Now we're going to an area called the Upper West Side, comprised of many historic neighborhoods, but today we're visiting the new thing. It is called The Works, and it is this mixed-use development. We're actually more interested in the food hall called the Chattahoochee Food Works.
Bobo intriguing objects. I'm really intrigued.
There it is, and there's a Cubanos ATL inside. As you can see, it is not very busy, well, except for the Cubanos ATL stand. And she's by herself, she has many to-go orders and barely acknowledged us, and after what felt like an eternity, we decided to go eat someplace else.
Well, we ended up eating someplace else, not at the Cubanos ATL. I mean, she was swamped and understaffed, and we were really hungry. So we went for the place, and it was really good actually what we had.
Yeah, we had a Philly cheesesteak, which was good. Now let's go to this park, which is also new, and according to what we read, you get a nice view of downtown. Here we are, Westside Park.
We are here. We're gonna look for this yellow loop. This, by the way, Westside Park, but we have no idea what we're doing. There's supposed to be a nice view of downtown with the reservoir, and that's what we're looking for.
That's it. That's the view. I'm not impressed. Like in many other cities, there's a lot of new high-end development here in Atlanta. And to be honest, we don't really feel like finding parking and walking around anymore. That Philly cheesesteak kind of made me sleepy, actually. But let's do a drive-by tour, shall we? There are actually many things we can see without getting out of the car. For example, Margaret Mitchell's home. She's famous for writing the novel Gone with the Wind, later adapted for the big screen in 1939, considered to this day one of the greatest films of all time. This, by the way, Peachtree Street, perhaps the main north to south street here in Atlanta. And here's the Fox Theater from the 1920s. Very historic. Actually, I just had a great idea. Let's get out of downtown. Well, here we are at the Martin Luther King National Historical Park. As we enter, we are greeted by a statue of Mahatma Gandhi, who inspired King in the pursuit of non-violent resistance. Let's step inside. There's a plethora of information inside about the civil rights movement and the life and death of King.
Churches. We'll be able to join hands. Ain't gonna let nobody.
The juxtaposition of all the audio sources does feel a little cacophonous, but perhaps that's the intent. Let's walk across to the tomb site.
Non-violence and non-existence.
And this is it, the final resting place of Martin Luther and Coretta Scott King. We could literally spend hours here, going through all the exhibits in detail and taking all the tours, but that's all we're going to do today. Since there are no more tours of the house available today, we're just going to drive by the birth home of Martin Luther King. And there it is on the right. They are in the process of restoring many other houses in the neighborhood. Now we are approaching Inman Park. This was Atlanta's first planned suburb, dating back to the late 1880s. And that's all we're gonna do today. Tomorrow, we are actually moving closer into town and we might be able to explore a little more. Well, yeah, tomorrow will be another day.
Good morning. It's beautiful out here. Very cold, but beautiful. We're gonna go on a little hike. How about that? Let's hike to the top of Stone Mountain. Yeah, the tram is not working, so we're gonna hike.
There it is, Stone Mountain. And the plan is to hike all the way to the top.
Well, here we are. Seems to be a pretty busy trail, judging by the parking lot. So let's see where the trailhead is. Okay, so we are here and we're gonna take the walk-up trail all the way to the top of Stone Mountain here. Let's do it. I've been wanting to do this hike for a while now. I believe that's the Confederate hole back there, but the hike is up. I mean, we're gonna have the sun in our face. And it's cold, I'm losing my voice. Here we go, walk up trail. Let me tell you, it is a little bit wet because of the morning condensation, so I must be careful not to slip and fall, you know. It's a beautiful morning otherwise, beautiful. Perfect weather. I mean, it's cold, but other than that, it's probably high 30s. Contemporary petroglyphs. Yeah, this part seems to be a little uneven. But it's not bad. It's a relentless, you know, uphill climb. But we've done a lot more strenuous than this so far. It's a steady climb, let me tell you. Steady climb, but either I'm in better shape now or it is actually not all that strenuous, to be honest about it. Oh, it's becoming a little more steep now in this part. You can already see Atlanta back there. It is not a bathroom, it is just like a rest area. Yeah, I believe this coming up would be the steepest part. Still, compared to like Mount Monadnock, this is nothing. As I always mention, never forget to look back. What a view. Let's see it from up there. Well, we don't have all these cables and wires. Okay, now for the steepest part. They even have this handrail so you can help yourself. But it's still not that bad. Oh yeah, that's a good incline, good exercise. Oh yeah, that section back there really kicked my butt. But the views are definitely going to be worth it. As I was saying, it is such a perfectly clear day today. You know, that you can see for miles and miles. This is gonna be great now. Is it that way or this way? I don't know. I guess we follow the yellow blazes or the white blazes. I don't know. We'll follow the white blazes. Here comes another pretty steep section of the hike. We're almost there. We're almost there. And I believe we have conquered the top of Stone Mountain.
That would be the tram station, which is temporarily closed for scheduled maintenance as of our visit here on January 7th.
Yeah, it's always a great satisfaction when you complete a hike like this one. It was pretty strenuous towards the end, although it wasn't very long in general. It was a mile, in fact, I've done right now 1.01 miles in 30 minutes. And I'm gonna linger here at the top of, for a little bit, take a couple of pictures, and we'll go back down because we have to check out from the campground today. We're gonna stay at Harvest Host. We might explore Atlanta a little more, and then spend one night with the family, and then for real, driving to the west. As I told you earlier, the tram is not working. There'll be a good way to come up here, you know, if you don't feel like doing the strenuous climb or you're unable to. So, beautiful views all around. Let's see what the views are from this particular vantage point. I wonder how he made it up here. I mean, the highest point has to be somewhere around here. Here we go, that's it. That's the geodetic marker. US coast. You know, I should have paid more attention to the trailhead sign because I have no idea what the difference is between the solid white and the broken yellow. I think I came up through the broken yellow though, so that's where we're gonna go down. Here's another geodetic marker, so this might be the very true top, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know how that works.
I imagine that would be like the beginning of the Appalachian, right? The Appalachian Mountains, or Appalachian, as they say.
Those are the King and Queen Towers. They resemble chess pieces, hence the name. And I believe we are now right on top of the Confederate memorial carving. And that would be the inn down there. The historic Carillon. Those must be the yurts, part of the campground. Of course, the great views of downtown Atlanta, about 50 miles to the west.
Well, like they say, what goes up must come back down, so, or something like that. We're going back down. It is a very, very busy trail here on a Saturday morning. I mean, I was expecting it to be kind of busy, but not this busy. We can still see, I mean, the views of downtown Atlanta ever present on the way down. I think the views on the way down are, you know, when you're going up, you don't really look back as much. But on the way down here, it's quite a sight. And I still don't know where the solid white goes to. Maybe that's how the pickup truck made it all the way up here. I mean, it's not trivial. It's I'm glad we did this. All right, let's go down. Time's running out. it is a lot steeper than it looks on camera, let me tell you. And my 360 memory card filled up, so we don't have a 360 for this section, but I'm taking it very slow because it is like 45 degrees, or at least it feels like 45 degrees. Here we are, we've made it to that kind of halfway point, resting area, picnic, shelter, whatever you want to call it. And I guess, just like in that wall in Seattle, people here have that disgusting practice of sticking gum to things. Why? I'll never understand. Yeah, I can see the white building, so we're almost there. Almost there. Confederate Hall, that's what it's called. Let me take a look here real quick at the trail map, see if we can figure out what that other solid white trail was. Okay, this is the one we took, and I guess the white trail. This is the sky ride. Oh, here we go. I don't understand. Well, I'm glad I got here early. The parking lot seems to be completely full now. And I forgot where I parked. Over there. A little close, perhaps. I'm glad I've lost some weight. Well, I stopped here real quick because we're gonna see the carving on Stone Mountain, and then for real, we gotta get going. Yeah, this is where you would take the sky ride if it was working, and we took it some years back. It's cool because you get to see the carving on the rock from the sky ride. This is not fully open at this time. View the carving. Let's do it. Well, there it is.
It is the largest high-relief sculpture in the world. It depicts 3 Confederate figures of the Civil War, President Jefferson Davis, and Generals Robert E. Lee and Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson. The main sculptor was one Gutzon Borglum, better known for another, arguably more famous sculpture depicting 4 presidents. And we were just up there.
It kind of sucks when things are undergoing renovations or are closed. I'm sure it's for the better in the long run, but for the purposes of our visits, you know, it is what it is, as they say.
It is moving day, and today we're going to a Harvest Host closer to town, so it will be less expensive just to take an Uber. I mean, almost equally expensive as parking. Well, it turns out the Harvest Host is a brewery in the same Upper West Side neighborhood we were yesterday. I think we're supposed to park by these orange cones right here.
Well, we took an Uber. We are at Centennial Olympic Park, and it was a cool Uber ride because it was our first Tesla ride. And the driver, she was like it's super enthusiastic, telling us about all the features and whatnot. So that was very cool. That was one of the coolest Uber rides we've ever had, if not the coolest. I'll give her a good rating for sure. And well, now we're gonna walk around and see what's up. It's a beautiful day in Atlanta. By the way, that behind me is the Georgia Aquarium. It's supposed to be the largest aquarium in the United States, I believe. But some other time, as you know, we're not really aquarium or zoo people. I mean, we visit them from time to time, but one of these days. Right now, I want to see the Olympic rings and then just look around here. Maybe we'll go to the sundial later for some sundowners.
Here we have a sculpture of Pierre de Coubertin, founder of the International Olympic Committee, known as the father of modern Olympic Games.
Yeah, those are the Olympic rings in the form of a fountain. I don't want to get wet, so well, yeah, in every city you're gonna have a landmark where people will make a line to take a picture with it. Here in Atlanta is the Olympic rings. I'm sure there are other ones, but anyway. Let's see if we can find the world of Coca-Cola. Huh?
Here's William Porter of the Atlanta Committee for the 1996 Olympic Games. Another major attraction here is the world of Coca-Cola, since it was here that the sugary drink was created by one John Pemberton in 1886, after Fulton County passed prohibition legislation.
Well, as you probably know, we're not really into sugary drinks, but world of Coca-Cola is a thing here, right? This is where Atlanta, Pemberton is the name of the guy who invented Coca-Cola. He was from here. So it's the birthplace of Coke and all the other sugary drinks you may think of. And I'll have one once or twice a year when I go to a fast food joint, but that's about it.
All right, let's walk around downtown a little bit, at least to Peachtree Street. Say that 3 times in a row.
European ambulance.
We were hoping to get something to eat around here, but today, on a Saturday, it doesn't seem to be that kind of downtown. And my instincts tell me it may not be very safe here after dark.
That makes me feel better.
I mean, look at it. There's a Hard Rock and a Hooters, so some places are open, but downtown is certainly not as I remembered it from just a few years ago. I guess perception is a funny thing. I am not gonna go into too many details, but suffice to say, It got to a point where it didn't feel safe, so I put away the camera and we took an Uber back to the works.
We ended up coming to Taste Wine Bar and Bistro Market, actually.
It is a great concept. They give you a card and you pour yourself whatever you want. The owner's super friendly, and at the time of our visit, they had only been open for about a week. I wish him success. The paninis are really good too.
Spanish panini. I'm gonna be honest, I was a little down on Atlanta this time around. But just coming to this place redeemed the whole city of Atlanta, which comes to show sometimes you have to come to the suburbs, the neighborhoods where people actually live and play. And you find places, it was expensive, don't get me wrong, it was pricey, but the friendliest people, the absolutely amazing wines, great, one of the best paninis I've had, and actually bottle prices not bad at all. So with that, we conclude our great American cities, Atlanta. We'll be back.
We came back to our Harvest host, Second Self Brewing, to, as it is customary, patronize the business. They have this retro vibe going. Pretty cool.
So they have a beer with my name on it.
In the morning, we drove to Ackworth to spend some time with family, but what happens in Ackworth stays in Ackworth. Now we have a long 2-day drive ahead of us all the way to Texas, to the Piney Woods area, and then the Dallas-Fort Worth megalopolis for the next installment of the Great American Cities series. But all that will be the next 2 episodes as we slowly make our way across the North American continent. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and see you on the road.
I'm riding in